Business Source is proudly sponsored by JCH Communications. When it comes to marketing, we mean business. From websites to videos, we can guarantee you a return on your investment. Take a look now on our website at our video, www.jchcom.com. Hi and welcome to Business Source, brought to you by Connecting Business. Our thanks, as always, go to our great friends and sponsors over at JCH Communications for all your digital marketing needs. And now the show that gives you authentic conversations to help your business. As usual, no smoke and mirrors, just real people sharing their experiences. I'm your host, Lee Nightingale, and my guest today is someone that is going to give us an insight into the highs and lows of the professional tennis world. Please welcome Edward Harwood.
Hi, Lee. Thank you so much for having me.
No problem at all.
Yeah.
Yes, this is a real pleasure because you're actually my tennis coach, oddly enough. So I'm really excited to get into this one with you. But and here's real life world, my friend. Screaming kids in the background. We have to deal with that these days on these. Apologies to those viewers watching and listening. Ed, if you could just set the scene in terms of where you're at now, in terms of what role or business you're running in the tennis world, help people understand what you're up to.
Yes. So for those who don't know me, I am a tennis coach. So I've been doing this for the last 3 years now. So right now, currently, we are in the October half term. Usually I would be doing some holiday camps, which would be more for the spring and summer. But as we slowly move towards autumn, I'm just currently doing individual lessons. So most of the time in my day will be 3 or 4 hours in the morning. I might have a couple of hours break in the afternoon, and then I may or may not have an evening session elsewhere. So normally in 1 or 2 venues in a week.
Okay. Wonderful. And I'm assuming that people of all abilities and ages. How does that work?
Yeah, so probably with the one-to-one lessons, I'd say I'm teaching anywhere from the ages of 13 to 18 for juniors, and then I'd say anywhere from, for adults, probably 30 plus at the moment, and mainly beginners, improvers. I have a couple of advanced players, but nothing performance related so far.
Okay, all right, wonderful. I'm really interested in the journey because I'm relatively familiar with the journey of a pro golfer and how they progress from amateur world into the professional ranks. So I'm really intrigued to understand your story and where it all began. How old you were when you took up tennis, and walk us through that progress to actually turning pro, because I'm fascinated by that.
Yeah. So to start it all off, I probably started at the age of 5, 6 years old at Langley Tennis Club, which isn't too far from Berkhamsted. And I just started picking up a racket at, I believe it was my brother's birthday party. I was then invited to another party, and then I just started from there, playing about 2 or 3 days a week. And then I started to notice I was getting really good, probably up to the age of 10. But by that time, my parents sent me to a boarding school for 6 years, so that kind of decreased my time in the week. More studies, other things to focus on. Right. And once I was probably about 14, I knew I had the level. I was a bit of a late bloomer, but I knew there was a lot to come for the future. So I decided to go full-time
lessons as well, in between.
Yeah. So pretty much at the end of the week, because I was boarding weekly from school, I'd have sessions on Saturday, Sunday, and then there was a club near my school where I used to do 1 or 2 lessons. So I just walk down and go from there. And then that was it really. And then from 16, I just went straight into full time at Berkhamsted for 2 years. I then went to Barcelona for a year, came back, and then I just self-funded it for myself. So I would do a little bit of coaching maybe in the winter months. And from spring, summer, I would then go and play tournaments on my own. So it was very much
just to take the pause there. How do you actually make that transition from having some lessons at a weekend and picking up tennis racket at your mates at parties and what have you? Nice mates, I'm sure they've got nice houses with private tennis courts by the sounds of it. But at what point did you identify actually, yes, that's what I want to do for a career. And
Yeah.
is it a case of you write a letter to the Professional Tennis Association or whoever it is, the LTA, and say, I'd like to be a pro?
Yeah, I think I just started winning lots of tournaments from 14, 15, mainly regional, going to national. And then I thought, okay, I have level here. And to be honest with you, I just wasn't really bought into the idea of perhaps going to college tennis, which a lot of people do these days. It just didn't strike me. I didn't really like the idea of, finishing school, going to university, and then get a job like a lot of people do. I think I just had a very different character, to be honest. And if I always knew that if the playing career didn't work, I can always go down the coaching pathway. So I always had that plan B just in case. But that was my main reason. I just started winning a lot.
I guess that helps.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah,
height helps, right? Because you're what, about 6'20" or something? Yeah.
Yeah, 6'6". Yeah, so very tall.
Yeah, good. Long levers. So that I'm sure you're a nightmare to receive a serve from.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah.
Well, I mean, I have been on the receiving end of a few when you get a little bit leery in our tennis lessons, and I wouldn't want to have to face them week out, that's for sure. So okay, so you're winning the lessons, and then you and your coach are sort of saying, do you know what, there's something here, and that like for example with golf, you have to be like a 4 handicap or less in order before you can turn pro. So is there a limit or restriction when it comes to tennis?
Yeah, so obviously it's a different system because we have a draw in tennis. So you can get anywhere from a 32 to 64 draw in the qualifying in the pro circuit of features. And I did this a couple of times where I would need to win 2 or 3 matches to qualify. And then after that, every round you go from there, you then get ATP points, which will pick up a ranking from there. So the lowest ranking, if you have, for example, 1 point, will be, I'd say, 2,000 in the world, just to give you an idea. So I never really got to win into a second round of the main draw, but I was always qualifying, and then you are given prize money after your loss. So yeah. And then in terms of the doubles, I would normally make quarterfinals, but then to get points in that one, you'd have to make a semi-final. So the point structure is a little bit different to golf in some way.
Right, okay. All right, so you decide that's what you want to do. Rather play tennis one way or another than go down the educational route, which is understandable. And so that takes you off to Barcelona, and what happens there?
Well, it was probably about a year after the 2 years I was doing full-time in Berkhamsted. So I was living with a family, picked up a language. So over there they have Spanish and Catalan. And then eventually a lot of the players start to leave the academy at the time. And I thought, okay, now's the right time for me to maybe go back to England and work on the faster surfaces, because we normally have indoor hardcourt and grass compared to Spain, which is a slower surface, which is clay. I mainly went to work my ground stroke game to help.
Gotcha. Okay. So you came back from Barcelona into doing what?
So I decided to take a year out to coach for a little bit and just to put up my qualifications. Simply, I just couldn't self-fund it, so I decided to just take the year out and then go back again. So after that first year, which was a long one, I then decided that I still have the level. I'll play a couple of British tours, which are also known as national events in England. And then I started to then travel around Europe by car for about 8 months within the first year coming back. And that probably wasn't the easiest ride, considering I was always on a very shoestring budget, should we say. And I was always camping next to where the tournament venue was. I didn't really stay in a nice luxury hotel, have a coach with me, training my racket. So I had to pretty much organize week by week tournaments where I was going to go. So 1 week I could be in France, and then the second week I have to decide, okay, do I go to Italy or Belgium, for example? So that was the first part of my year. And then once I started to break even in that, I then decided the second year I will start to go by flight again. So I started going to Israel, Tunisia, I went to Ireland, again on the faster surfaces. That was just handier for me and my results got better. And with the change of coach, that helped also. But then just again, it just started coming to the end of these 2 years where, again, financially that comes in place. And obviously you don't want to be in debt. So then I think just out of my control, I just chose that I will have to take a coaching route and stick with this from now. So
Right.
that's the story, yeah.
So, you know, without going too personal into it and into the pound, shillings and pence, as it were, two sides. Can you give us an aspect of that financial cost? So, for example, you know, when you play Euro Pro golf level, it's generally around the 500 to £1,000 a week, and you go to sort of Challenge Tour, it's 2 to maybe 3,000 a week, and then European Tour around sort of 3 to 5,000 with your caddies and your travel and your hotel and all the rest of it. What does that look like from a pro tennis level? But also, you know, can you just give us an insight into what that typical week is? You know, you said you were driving around, so give us that sort of fly on the wall documentary feel of, well, you know, if I finish the tournament on Sunday or whatever, then I travel reaching rackets. You know, what does that week look like?
Yeah, so typically, if I'm going into the qualifying event first, before getting into the main draw, I think it would normally cost €35 for the entry fee. And then eventually I've got, well, obviously food cost, fuel, you know, typical expenses to keep going. So that would be a weekend. So that would be Saturday till probably the following Monday. And then the main draw starts on Tuesday for singles and doubles. So I'd always try and stay until probably a Thursday, because then the following tournament, I know I'm normally going to be on qualifying and I have to sign in the day prior. So if things have really worked out, I would then stay for doubles. And then if I so happen to make a doubles final, which didn't really happen, then I may have to skip the singles the following week because I might not be able to get there in time. So in terms of the scheduling, it's never really easy when you're doing it on your own. And it's obviously more handy for a coach to make that decision with you if you choose to do 2 or 3 weeks in one venue and then look to come back for a training week. But in my case, it was always week by week for a good 6 or 7 months of tournaments.
And especially obviously made more difficult if you're driving between venues. Not, you know, if you're jumping on private jet from one venue to the next, and it's tucked up nicely in your 5-star hotel the same evening, it's very different, right?
Yeah, no, it's completely different. There's a big difference between driving. I'd probably do on average, I'd say 7 or 8 hours going into the next week tournament, compared to a flight where, you know, I can get into Israel in 4 hours, have a taxi ride into the, which would be another 30 minutes, and then you're just in the hotel and you just walk back in front to the tournament.
Right.
So there is a big difference.
So generally, there's a tournament hotel which is extremely close to the venue, right?
Usually, yes, that's right. And then if there wasn't a hotel, then my consolation would be to find an apartment with perhaps another player I knew who was going to do those couple of weeks, and then you split the costs that way.
Yeah, yes, it's very, very similar to golf, you know, although that certainly in the lower leagues here, players tend to sort of go week to week to week to week with each other. You know, you bond with 1, 2, 3, and you tend to half share with them for the year, if you like. You know, you play the same tournaments together. Sounds like it's a little bit more disorganized, not the right word, but disconnected, because people are going off into all sorts of different countries to play, whereas you kind of don't have that here. When you're playing Euro Pro, they're all here in the UK and everyone's playing the same tournament. There are no other tournaments unless you're going to play like the Alps Tour or various things. So sounds like it's a lot more challenging. But did you not travel with your doubles partner? You say you were playing doubles.
It was always very difficult to have a consistent doubles partner, again, because they could be doing the different tournament the following week or maybe in the next couple of weeks. So I'd say I maybe had one doubles partner for 1 or 2 weeks, and then you know, they would go probably back to America whilst I'm in North Africa, then heading back to Europe. And because there are more tournaments in Europe, I think that's the bit which is more spread out.
And amongst all of that, you know, if you're not traveling with your coach and stuff, how do you make time for practice and, you know, your own fitness, right? Because you can't just keep playing tournaments, right? You know, you have to stay conditioned.
Yeah, so I normally would probably have a physio at least once a week, just to check up on my body, that I'm, you know, fit to keep obviously playing for the next 1 or 2 weeks ahead. If I feel there is any niggle or injury, then best that I come straight back home, get a good training block, stuff, and then try again. But in terms of my own fitness program, I would have that from my current fitness coach in Berkhamsted. So that would all be online. And then because obviously there's no coach to sort the practice out for me, I would then have to go and look for other players to say, you know, shall we organise this time for tomorrow at, let's say, 2 p.m. before our matches the next day? And then there's a sign-in sheet for that at the tournament office. And then obviously on top of that, there's then collecting tennis balls, which you then have to normally give a deposit for that because they are the main brand ball that you have to be using. And that's about it, really.
Wait, so you have to pay for your own balls during matches?
Yeah, so you normally have to give a deposit for the official ball that you're using for the practice. Right. Give that back because obviously they need that for maybe other practice players or anything else.
Right. Now, I've always wondered what happens to the balls after a tournament. Odd question, random.
I think
they only get used for like 7 games or something, right? And then they get changed.
That's right. Yes, every 7 games they're done, and then I'd imagine after the tournament they can give them to some of the players, or otherwise they'll just give them to, if it's the tennis centre or the academy, or they might want to use the balls after that, perhaps, or otherwise if they're just so worn out, you can recycle tennis balls, I believe.
Interesting.
So,
Never knew that. Yeah, I imagined they would go into junior tennis, you know, the local club or wherever they are having the tournament. Because you must get through.
Yeah.
Tens of balls, possibly hundreds of balls for the week or the fortnight.
Well, if you have a normal tube, there's 3 or 4 balls in, and then you would need an extra 3 cans, depending on how long the match could go, because it could be 30 minutes or it could be 3 hours. And then the amount of matches in the tournament, both men and women's side. So yeah, I'd imagine you would need at least anywhere from 500 or 600 balls per week for the tournament, as an example. Yeah.
Wow. And I see people, when I go to play tennis with them and I play a match and they're like, yeah, I've got some balls here, and you pull them out and you look at them and you're like, how long have you had these? And they're like, oh, we've played like 3 matches with them. I'm like, 3 matches or 3 sets? Or when they're like, oh no, 3, 4 matches. I'm like, mate, these are just like sponges. Like there's nothing in them. There's no compression.
They're straight away, yeah.
Yeah. So I'm like, no thanks. We'll use my new can here. Thanks.
Yeah, the balls will be flying by then.
Yeah. So it sounds one of the similarities, even though you're house sharing with the golf, as I was mentioning, but even still, you've got a lot of time alone, and so it feels like a very lonely experience. Whilst from the outside, from people looking in, going, "Well, he's playing tennis for a living. I mean, how sad can he be? You know, how unhappy can he be?" But they just don't realize you're spending all that time on your own, you're doing all that traveling, and when you're playing a sport where 99% of the time you don't win, because let's be brutally honest, it's the same in golf. You know, there's going to be one winner with 150 or how many players are in there. The majority of people never ever win. So how do you cope with that time on your own? And what sort of things did you used to do to keep mentally strong? Yeah, I'm curious about that.
Yeah, I think there used to be times where I'd have a full month of, let's say, 4 tournaments, and I'd lose every single one first round in the qualifying, and then I'd think, oh, okay, this is this right what I'm still doing? But then I used to go back into my practice and just I think work my psychological view, just imagining that practice is that match, no matter who I'm playing with, who is ranked 500 in the world or has no ranking, and just keep treating it that way. And then eventually the matches will come with wins, and then you get confidence. I was always trying to focus on making sure you're getting 2 or 3 wins in a row, and then you know where your next level is.
Sorry, my own bad there. On mute. I'm just thinking, how do you keep yourself motivated knowing that you don't win the majority of the time? You know, I think, is it therefore something where you have to manage your own expectations in terms of finding little identifiers of progress and that you're getting better, 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 better? Notwithstanding, of course, you know, that you're always going to take the odd knock and step back, but you know, if you can feel that there's progress at least, you know, does that help with the mental side?
Yes, it does. I think the best way to look at it is you have to really think in the long-term goal, that for the time for you to take your feet to win a future event. So, for example, that's a 15 or 25k. It might not take you a year. It could take you even 3 years. But then once you're used to winning those tournaments, again, you need to the next stage. And I think that was just for me, as you mentioned, on the mental point of view, the more times I qualify, I can then start to get the ATP points, and then eventually that, with enough points, you then no longer have to qualify. That just gives you a bit of fresh air. I believe that was the next stage I was always trying to get to.
Right, right. So switching tack slightly, how does one transition back from life out on tour, on the circuit, as it were, and then you have to sort of put down roots and turn it into a job coaching,
Yeah.
because obviously you don't just go, hi, I'm Ed, I'm back from tour, everyone come to lessons for me. You know, that doesn't happen. So, you know, how do you generate that interest? So can I assume you joined a club and kind of got into it that way?
Yeah, so because I was always training at Berkhamsted from a very young age, I always knew that because Chris Stringer, who was the current head coach at the time, always mentioned to me saying, you know, whenever you want to stop, there's always a job here for you, guaranteed. You know, you don't need an interview or anything. You just come straight through, and we'll help obviously train you up and get you through your qualifications. So because I already had a current level 3 from years before, I could go into one-to-one lessons, groups, I could go to schools, and then eventually, hopefully from there, I can then build and become a head coach one day. So I think it was very much, I started off being an aspiring hitter, so I was, you know, still in the performance side, helping the other juniors, and then eventually I was given more and more work to do one-to-one lessons, perhaps in the early mornings or late evenings. I was doing some rusty rackets, or should we say beginner groups. And then eventually, slowly and gradually, you get a better name of yourself. People know who you are, they love the story, and then you build.
Yeah, a bit like in the rallies, right? Yeah, building the
Yeah.
rallies. But so what would a typical week look like in terms of number of lessons a day / week, and is it a 7-day-a-week thing, or were you able to keep yourself busy enough Monday to Friday that you were able to take the weekends off? So it'd be great to understand
Yeah,
that.
I think just starting off, because I was in one venue only, and it was obviously very convenient for me from home, driving in 15 minutes a day. I was working Monday to Saturday, and a lot of my work was very much in the early afternoon school time, 30 should we say, and then I was wrapping up at about 8:30, 9 p.m. And then maybe I would say that's very much a Monday to Friday slot, and then Saturday, because a lot of the kids are also out of school, I would work from 8 till about 4 p.m. So that was a typical day at the office. And then obviously from the Monday to Friday, every now and then I might have the 1 hour in the early morning at 7 or 8 in the morning for probably mainly adults, because some of them are a 9 to 5 job. So they are very antisocial hours, but once you get used to the first year, you can then adjust, and then you have to look elsewhere if you want more morning work, perhaps. So in terms of weekly, in answer to your question, I would be working about 30 to 35 hours a week.
Okay. And is it a case of you have to really cane it, working hard through the spring, summer, early autumn,
Yeah.
because of course, late autumn, winter, I'm imagining, does it fall off a cliff and is it really sort of sporadic work because we don't know whether it's raining or snowing or too windy to play. Berkhamsted only has 2 indoor courts, and I know you're not there now currently, but that must be a really difficult time of the year, having to sort of squirrel away and save to see through those winter months.
Yeah, I think I always knew that December and January are very much the dead months. People have holidays, and then some people might want to do dry January or just take a break. And then February starts to open up a little bit more, heading towards March, spring. And I think, in terms of holidays, I'd only really have, I'd say, 3 weeks in December, and then maybe a week off in the summer, because that's the more busier time where you've got holiday camps and more people want lessons, and don't tend to go out so much. So yes.
Yeah, good. So what's an ideal world for you then, in terms of what you'd love to be doing? If I don't want to say if money's no object, because everyone needs money, right?
Yeah.
But what would a perfect role for you look like?
I think for me, mine's always been tennis, whether I'm playing or coaching it anyway. So my goal would be to help smaller venues, which is what I'm currently doing. So I'd like to approach to smaller clubs that perhaps have 2 tennis courts. They might have lights or not, and are looking to just start a program because it's not really something they're used to, and they want to catch up to the times like the bigger clubs. And this is what I mainly did within the lockdown period. I was always searching within a 30 to 45-minute radius from where I live, and I've had a great success from that, which has helped. So that's just my main goal, is just helping smaller clubs grow.
Wonderful. And speaking of lockdown, so there you are, you're coaching. It's March. We've got some nice spring weather.
Yeah.
And then boom, lockdown. Everybody inside. No tennis whatsoever. What was life like then during that first lockdown period? Was it literally a case of zero coaching?
Yeah.
Were you able to do some? And then how did, as it slowly opened up, what were you able to do?
So it was very difficult. I think there was zero coaching. You were completely blocked out from the tennis club. I think they put locks on all the gates, so no chance. And because it was 6 weeks, luckily I already had some lessons where I can coach at people's homes, so they were quite fine with that going ahead as long as I was healthy, and so were they. So I just continued that through the lockdown. But then I believe at the time the LTA, the Lawn Tennis Association, did give grants out to coaches to obviously keep ourselves going. And then in terms of living, it was difficult because to not have a racket in my hand for more than even a week or 2 weeks, I probably haven't since I first started. So I started picking up playing darts. I read books. I got to do things which I never really got to do. I got to learn so many new skills, and I think most importantly, I thought, okay, now's a bit of a wake-up call. This pandemic, I've got to start to maybe look to build my own business, but just give it a bit of time.
Yeah. Absolutely. So are you someone that plays tennis on holiday?
I probably would, yeah. Yeah.
I don't blame you as well, because obviously when you're coaching, you're not playing. You're feeding balls the majority of the time. Yes, you might be rally playing, but 99.9% of the people that you play against can't compete against you at your level. So you're having to dial back and dial back. So how do you still get your kicks in? Who do you play against to keep your skills sharp at the level that it needs to be?
So when I was at Berkhamsted before, I would normally play the team club matches. So because Berkhamsted is still in the regional league, that was my only match practice within the summer. So normally I would play 5 singles and doubles matches, and then that's me kind of done really. But then sometimes if myself or another coach have a free slot and we're not coaching, we'll hit up against one another and perhaps play some practice sets just to keep ourselves going.
Yeah.
So that's the only way really. So yeah.
Nice. So is there is an opportunity to play against other coaches, sort of creating sort of local leagues against other coaches maybe?
Yeah, we've always started doing it, but I think because a lot of us have so many hours in court, that's probably the last thing we want to do is then just start playing matches during the because that's more of a weekend Sunday thing. It's not too much of a problem. Yeah.
Right. Okay. So tail end of the pandemic, or certainly the lockdown. So I'm going to say the pandemic because we're certainly nowhere near the end of it. Things started to open up. You knew that you needed to protect your own interests and diversify and try and broaden the business out. What sort of things did you look out for? What sort of markets, areas did you feel that you needed to move into? Because clearly the utopia is create a customer base of recurring revenue, i.e. people that keep coming back for lessons, whether it be weekly, monthly, whatever, but consistent revenue coming in. That can come from individuals or small group lessons, I'm thinking, but also schools, colleges, that kind of thing, programs there where it's a fixed price, come in, Ed, and it doesn't matter whether you're teaching 2 or 20 kids.
Yeah. So in terms of marketing view, because I was restricted from doing groups at Berkhamsted for myself, because even though I was self-employed, still working for the club, I could only do one-to-one lessons. So in answer to that, because I was looking for other small venues where, I'm going to be the only coach doing that, I would give the option to people by saying, yes, you can do a pay-as-you-go if you wish, or if you wish to do a block of 6 or 12 weeks of lessons, then that's another option. And then again, the same with groups going forward. And then in terms of the schools, I would normally do because obviously they have terms and they have their half terms as well. I would normally do a 12-week block, and I would have anywhere from 8 to 12 kids in an hour session, just as an idea of that. Normally for my usual adults at my other small venues, I would have, I would say anywhere from an hour or 90 minutes duration on the court.
Right. You mentioned about learning new skills and stuff during lockdown. What sort of things did you pick up?
Well, I mentioned before, so darts was one, so a bit of coordination, something which was, I think it's very different because we're very much used to in tennis where we're going 15 love, 30 love, 40 and then game, but in darts you're subtracting all the points from whenever you start from, and 501. And well, I haven't been playing it since, so because I had nothing else to do, I thought I'll just pick up a new skill, and it was quite interesting. So I managed to get 3 180s, which is the maximum score you can get. But since then, I've obviously gone back to coaching again on court. So that was probably one of the main skills I did.
Interesting. And you like me, or you like reading books. What's been a read that you would recommend to people that was, a motivator for you, one that you sort of felt really good after reading, or really inspired you, or kind of opened your eyes to new things?
So I read again there's Agassi, who was he won multiple Grand Slams in I'd say probably the 90s into the early 2000s. And one of his books is called Open, and it was describing about one of his was only boxers can understand the loneliness of tennis players, and yet boxers have their corner men and managers. So obviously they're comparing the 2 different sports of obviously there's loneliness, and then there's the other side where you actually have a team who can help you within the match. I think it was quite nice to read a tennis book, because I'm normally reading something to do with politics, or I might read a magazine or something else. And I think it's mainly, again, learning about the story of, did they do the sport, didn't they, from such a young age. And I think that gave me a bit of an insight. Okay, I've got to try and use that going into my business as a tennis coach. And I think that's why I've had a great outcome so far.
Just winding up a little bit, if you were to give some advice, it can be one bit or multiple bits, to someone who is wanting to start out on that journey of becoming a tennis pro, a touring tennis pro, what would you give them with the benefit of hindsight that you would kind of just say, hey, you might want to watch out for this, because we all like that, we don't know what we don't know yet when we're going into those kind of things. So it's always great to dig into the mind of someone that's been through it.
So I'd say the first thing is just your environment, making sure you're surrounded by very good people, who are, like-minded people who are behind you, support you, no matter if you have good days or bad days. And then I think off court, again, just trying to avoid the times where, the crave of you would like to have a drink, or there is that cigarette you want to smoke, and it's trying to avoid those bad habits. And I've seen it from a very, even from the low level of tournaments, a lot of these players did it, and then therefore they didn't get the results they wanted, so then they stopped early. And then in terms of more of a sort of a fitness point of view, just making sure you're looking after your body, just stretching, rehab, and you've got the right team to help you with that, because I think I was very fortunate to never have an injury. I can understand the point of people where they might have stopped for a week, or it might be months and they have surgery, because they perhaps didn't look after their body in the right way. So yeah, I'd say the main point is environment, who you're around, your team.
Because that loneliness, again, having all that time in your own head, and all that time in hotels or campsites or wherever it may be, in the golf world, generally speaking, certainly the caddies and the players, they go out to dinner, they drink, and more often than not they gamble, and a lot of caddies smoke and all that stuff. But we have seen a transition over the last 5 to 10 years where everyone's kind of really notched up a level and said, wait a minute here, no, this is actually requires us both as to play a caddy to be super fit, a lot fitter, and certainly the golfer themselves has to be. So there was a transition where people really sort of started hitting the gym and all the rest of it, but you can do that for a certain while, but then you still don't get the results, and all of a sudden you're back on the source. So it's a really difficult environment to be in, with all that time on your own, in your own head, and not turn to a drink or a cigarette or gambling or anything else just to occupy your mind. Real challenge, that one.
I think it's been setting an example, and if it is in golf where you've got the caddy or whoever's on your team, it's like tennis. If you do get that opportunity where you have a coach, again, they're right behind you, but whether you're having dinner with them or whatever, they have to do the same as you, I believe.
So wonderful. Ed, it's been fantastic chatting to you, sort of getting into the insights and brain of a pro. We don't get to chat too much when we're having the lesson, because it's normally me out of breath. You're stretching me all over the court, so conversation isn't very long. But so it's been really great to get under the hood, as it were. Hope you've enjoyed it.
Yes, I did. Very, very, very fun.
Fantastic. Well, that's it today. Thanks for joining us on another episode of Business Source. We look forward to seeing you on the next show. Take care.